Okay, so if you've watched any of the news reports, because you were full of knowledge 5 minutes ago.
No, look, the news is not a good source for any information at this point in our country. So no,
Okay. Well, it's
like
my talking to the news, so it's literally me standing there on live news agencies.
that doesn't mean anything. Like, do you do you understand what like misinformation is? Do you understand that the war on drugs is completely flawed and that it's just a complete fear-mongering tactic that has not served us at any capacity? Do you understand that that's perpetuated by law enforcement? Do you understand that pretty much every single time that people in your field claim that they're ODing on fent, that it is 100% disproven every single time? So what is different in your case is what I want to know. Like, what is different? How did it get into your system? Wind doesn't blow fent into people's faces. That is not an occurrence. It has to go into your mucous membrane and it had to be a significant amount. So like you're being like salty about it. And like, if I have compassion, if that actually happened to you, but I would need clarity because what is being said is not accountable at all. And it
So
hurts people. If you are here to serve people and to protect people, you need to understand what this propaganda does because it hurts those of us with substance use disorder. And it hurts people who are ODing, and then people are less effective because they're scared that they're going to die from touching fentanyl. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I have compassion for having a response to something that is terrifying. It's scary. Like, can you honestly tell me that you have no fear about Fent? Like there's no fear about it at all, and none of that was psychosomatic? Like you're telling me 100% that it's just you wind blew it into your face?
okay, so
Honestly?
I can answer one of your 20 questions you just asked.
Yeah. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So this is what happened on a routine traffic stop that I've done many times before. I'm a narcotics-based officer. I deal with narcotics anywhere from fentanyl to methamphetamine, anything, almost every shift. I do that. That is my purpose and my job. I am a narcotics-based officer. I have had many trafficking arrests to include 28 grams plus of fentanyl. Never had an anxiety attack. I've never had a panic attack, nor have I ever had fear when it comes to handling large amounts of fentanyl because I know the precautions to take. Wear gloves. You don't take a bath in it. You handle it the proper way. When we test it, we go to safe locations to test it. That night, it was very windy here. We did not test it on the side of the road. When I found it, it was located on the subject's person. When finding that, we barely opened the dollar bill, which is what it was rolled up into. We found white powder. It was sealed back up into the dollar bill that it was in, dropped into an evidence bag. I do not know, and I've said this on news articles, I never stated from my mouth that the wind blew it up and made me overdose. That has not been stated. That is misinformation. What has been stated was due to the high winds, there is nothing stating that the powder, as we all know, we've been here talking about how everybody knows what fentanyl is. The small powder form got on my sleeves. It could have gotten on my vest. So then when I enter my vehicle and I sit down and my vest is now here, or if it's on my sleeves and I wipe my face with something that I have gloves on, if I wipe my face here, there is nothing stating that it is not inhaled. I cannot properly say that, hey, I put it in my mouth because I don't know if I wiped my nose. I don't know. Did I wipe my forehead? I don't know. I can tell you when I sat in the car and that's when I started to lose consciousness when I went to go drive away. That is all recorded on body cam. It is still under investigation, so not everything can be released.
Okay, well, look, see, the thing is I'm not here to vilify you, or I want to be clear on that. Like, I get very defensive of the community of substance users. I like the vibe that you have just even speaking about narcotics. I'm not with that, quite frankly. But that doesn't matter because I have my own biases, as do like everyone does. But the point I want to make is that if this is true,
Mm-hmm.
then you need to show toxicologist reports because it would be a significant finding because it's been disproven is what I'm saying. And this isn't my opinion. I don't like I've said it before. I thought that you could totally just touch it in OD. Like I was like, "Oh, damn," because I know that it's, micrograms. This is way different than milligrams and grams, you know what I mean? So I understand that. But there's not a single part of you, like you can say with full confidence there's not a single part of you that has an anxiety response when you're handling pounds of fent. Like
I have
you know,
of 28 grams in prior cases within the last 6 months that I have multiple trafficking amounts of fentanyl cases. I never once have had an anxiety attack over it. I've never had a panic attack when handling 20 over excess of 28 grams. I have never suffered from an anxiety or panic attack in my life. And like I said, it's still under investigation, so I can't give the exact details of the weight of the fentanyl that was handled that night. But I can confirm with you it was not a 28-gram, which I have previously, within the last 6 months, I'm not talking about
Yeah.
years, within the last 6 months, handled. I don't have, this is the way, and this is my personality as a cop, my
Yeah.
mindset of, if you're afraid of everything, you'll do nothing. I will not live every day being afraid. So if I sit here and tell you, oh, am I afraid of fentanyl? No. But I'm not ignorant to the fact that stuff happens. It does. Am I saying that I did everything perfect? I've never said that. Did I say that I possibly could have wiped my nose? I could have wiped my mouth. I could have wiped my eye. 100%. And that is something that, if that happened, it's something that I won't know because there's no camera facing me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The camera on my chest. So it's not going to catch what happens up here. I never made an accusation saying that the wind absorbed it and it seeped into my skin. That is not what was ever accused, what was ever said.
Okay, I
So,
hear you. Look, I hear you. I understand where you're coming from, but my point still stands. Like if this is true and somehow you've passively OD'd on Fent, then
okay.
this would completely change everything. So it would be your responsibility to provide toxicologist reports and everything that could, validate your story. And so the thing is that I respect people's lived experience. Okay, so it's conflicting. Like when I'm sitting here, I want to respect you and be like, hey, like you had a traumatic experience. I can acknowledge that. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this information, the idea of passively ODing on Fent, is 100% propaganda that is perpetuated by law enforcement agencies such as the DEA, and that has been disproven so much so that they're now going out and they're doing training within these, institutions, and they're actually training cops to let them know that you're not going to OD from passively touching it. Now, if you were to get a massive amount, like a decent amount into your mouth and into your mucous membrane, like that's another story. I don't know how the hell that could ever happen without actually railing it, like snorting it. So, and I'm not sitting here accusing you of doing that at all. That's not the vibe I get from you whatsoever, obviously. But I just don't think that law enforcement understands what this propaganda is doing and how it is rendering people ineffective and actually giving life-saving treatment to people that are overdosing. Like, can you see that aspect? Because I'm a multidimensional person. I can see different people's perspective. I can understand that if you've been around Fint a lot, that I maybe believe you that you're not anxious about it. But that doesn't take away from the possibility of having a psychosomatic response because a lot of this stuff is subconscious. And
Okay.
when we talk about, sorry, let me just say this and I'll shut up. When we talk about like dollar bills specifically, that was the last form of propaganda that was put out, and it was that you better watch out for dollar bills. And I'm sure you probably heard it, and so that to me is fishy as well. If there is misinformation, I think that because it's you and because this is your story, in my opinion, it would be you would need to take that initiative to denounce all of that misinformation and to make it clear that you somehow got it into your mouth. You know what I'm saying? Like that's way different than like, and I know you're not Fox News, and I know like, you know what I'm saying? I know how the media works, but like, it's just it hurts people to spread misinformation about this. Do you see where I'm coming from at all? Because I see where you're coming from, and I understand that if I was in your position and I saw this, I would be like, yo, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like I totally get that. I just don't think that people are understanding where this is coming from and why I'm defensive of those that are struggling with substances as someone who's been in recovery for almost 10 years. Like this is serious, you know what I mean? But I said I would shut up. Oh, let me let you talk.
So I agree with what you were saying if we were dealing with pharmaceutical grade fentanyl. I'm not sure where you're from. And be completely honest, I don't, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't.
Every location, every state, I've spoken with many officers in different states, have different grade of fentanyl going around. This is not a pharmaceutical grade fentanyl that we're out here dealing with. I've read comments of, oh, I've had nurses do this or my sick grandma. This isn't the fentanyl that the doctors are giving your sick grandma.
Yeah,
This isn't the same as a fentanyl patch. This is a grade of fentanyl that is created by street chemists who are constantly trying to go that one up that their user is becoming tolerant to. When that user becomes tolerant to something, you have to find that one up. There has been fentanyl that we have tested that come back with horse tranquilizer in it. And I could say that honestly, but y'all don't believe what I'm saying anyway, so I don't know why I'm
well,
going to
I
say
do. I mean, you're that
that.
is that that's fact though. That's not a, I mean, people debate it, but that's fact. And you're speaking to analogs though, because like fentanyl is fentanyl. There's carfentanil. There's a bunch of different analogs of this, which are far stronger. So yes, that's a fact. There's also trank dope, which is kind of what you're referencing to where it has xylazine in it.
Do you
And that's
and law enforcement and as a cop, I'm telling you that it's still classified under a Florida state statute as fentanyl, regardless of what else it has in it. Unless it has another controlled substance that has its own subsection, it is still classified under fentanyl. It would still be considered a fentanyl possession, a fentanyl overdose, whether it has the other things mixed in on top of it. Because we cannot prove, hey, it's got 20% of this. There is no way for me to prove that. There is no way for a state attorney. There is no way for us to prove that of what is in what. When you think of fentanyl, when it first started becoming a thing, when people were using it on the streets, and Narcan became a thing, it took one Narcan to get people out of overdoses. I can tell you in the area that I work in, it takes 4 to 5 Narcans to get a normal avid user out of a overdose because of the things that people are mixing in on the streets. I can't tell you everything that was in that fentanyl that I was dealing with that night. I never even got the chance to test it on the side of the road because I never got to leave the scene.
Yeah, I mean, what you're speaking on is objective facts, so I'm not going to sit here and combat that. The thing that I'm saying that I just want you to acknowledge, because I'm acknowledging what you're saying, I'm respecting what you're saying, is that do you understand that because this is you, that you do have a responsibility to try to find, like, put out some clarity when it
Not
comes to
that's
this?
my responsibility. I didn't have a responsibility to let this out because of HIPAA. I never had to let this out. My responsibility ended when I showed y'all what I went through. I got no benefit out of what happened. That person faces no extra charges from me. That person, I already had enough to take that person to jail. I benefited nothing. So I don't have a responsibility to do anything. My responsibility ended when I let the media release that video in hopes of saving other people, in hopes of another cop not making the mistake of, hey, I might have touched my face. Make sure you don't do that. Hey, you might be dealing with somebody who's overdosing on fentanyl and running up and trying to help them. And while you're doing whatever and you wipe your face or whatever the case may be, you could be exposed. That was where my responsibility ended. I
So, but isn't
respons-
your responsibility to serve and protect all people, not just cops? Like,
what part of you might be going to help somebody who overdosed and become exposed were you not understand like
no,
that's
look, you don't have to be salty. Look, the thing is that what do you not understand about when you tell people that you can OD from passively touching fent, that it messes them up to where they can't administer naloxone effectively, to where they wouldn't even they can freeze up and have a response that's driven from anxiety. You know what I mean? Like I get where you're coming from. You're gonna obviously look at it through the lens of like servicing your coworkers and shit like that. But it's like what it really comes down to is that this has a bigger effect that I just don't think that you're acknowledging. And I think that it doesn't, I disagree. I mean, I get where you're coming from saying that your responsibility ends there, but not when we're in an opiate epidemic, not when like the thing is that I think both of us probably agree when it comes to a lot of things. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to the prevalence of this, when it comes to just, how crazy it is, but we don't need to speak about it from a place of propaganda in order to create this sense of fear that is just going to render people ineffective in emergency situations. Like I would argue that it would cause issues in that area,
okay.
and that it has been disproven. Like I don't know if you're familiar with the most prevalent case where the video of the cop that's like falling back, that's 100% debunked and disproven. So if I would like make a video and go live and say the opposite if you were here with a toxicologist report and you were 100% confirming that this happened. You know what I mean? But it's like I it's tricky because as I mentioned, I like to honor people's lived experience, but just it's concerning to me that you're someone who is a provider ultimately for people with substance use disorder and people who are maybe not with substance use disorder that are experimenting or whatever. But it's like I just don't get the vibe of like not understanding that this is like a bigger issue. You see what I'm saying? Like
Okay,
it's a
so
lot.
I gave you the rundown of what happened. I gave you the same thing that I provided to the news. So I owe you nothing. I owe nobody anything more. I benefited nothing from this other than hoping that not only civilians, because again, Narcan is available anywhere now. I can tell you in Florida, you can go to a Walgreens and you can get Narcan. That is available to anybody. I can tell you the same way I told the news, the same way I'll tell citizens on the street. I suggest everybody should carry Narcan because you never know what can happen. That was my intention of getting the story out there in hopes of saving people who could possibly be exposed in any way. Not saying how they can be exposed in any way. Narcan saved a life. Narcan saved mine. That is my statement on it. I'm not asking you to agree. You're more than welcome to have your opinion, and that's fine. Everybody who's on this chat is more welcome to have their opinion. That's it. So I said my part on it. I hope that you kind of got some insight on mine. I understand, and I heard yours as well. So I think that kind of concluded that. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. I mean, I would love it if you could just give more information on this at some point, and because, like I said, if this is true and 100% proven, then this does need to be put out there. But I just look again. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Like we obviously butted heads, but I feel like I did my best to
nothing.
listen.
I will completely disagree with you. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to how this incident happened, and that's it. All right. I hope you have a great rest of your evening and continue your life.
All right. Have a good one.